would we waste that precious time in pursuit of what is yours and what is mine? Oh.
Jarrod Lawson, is this your first canal tour?
This is my first canal tour.
It's his first canal tour, but it is his second tour through Europe. Last year in May he dropped his debut album and he sort of, well, went famous overnight, so to say. You know, you always think as a listener, oh, there's a new kid on the block, but this guy's been working for years and years on his album, more than 10 years. Actually started playing music when he was really young, when he was about 2 years old, in his dad's studio. And now the second tour through Europe. I saw some interviews when you sort of became the overnight star and you were really humble and you're like, oh, it's hard to get used to it. You know, walking into restaurants, people knowing your name.
Right.
Are you used to it now?
I'm growing more accustomed to it every day. It's difficult when it happens so fast. You know, it was like I was just telling the story at one of our shows a couple nights ago. It was less than a year ago that I wasn't even doing music full time. I was tuning pianos during the day, and so to sort of have this like overnight complete transformation of my life it's a little bit difficult to sort of acclimate, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm learning.
And what kind of trouble do you have with it? Like what kind of stuff makes it difficult? Can you give an example?
I think a lot of it has to do with just growing accustomed to the fact that people now are paying a lot of attention to what I say. I mean, I've had some incidents on Facebook in particular where, I'm just now beginning to understand the level of notoriety that I guess I have achieved already. It's like I say something on Facebook and thousands of people are reading what I say now, which is I'm not used to. So I have to be kind of careful, you know, and when I'm like critiquing somebody's album or something, it's like I can't really do that anymore. So.
And just to make sure, I mean, it's not that you're sort of dressed up with your hoodie and this, how do you call it, blanket, so that nobody recognizes you. It's because you have a cold.
It's very chilly today, but yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Jarrod, in your music there is a message. Mm-hmm. If you would say, what is like the song of our era right now, what song would that be? You know, whereas you have in the 60s, you have all these Vietnam songs that you immediately link to war or to difficulties in the on the planet. Mm-hmm. What would you say is that song right now?
I mean, that's an interesting question. And that kind of gets to one of the points that I keep making about soul and jazz music these days, sort of lacking in messages that are relevant. I don't think there are a lot of songs out there that are really talking about what's important, you know, bringing subjects that are relevant up in music anymore. It's so rare.
Yeah. Why do you find it so important to bring that message?
I feel that music carries a lot of responsibility with it, because it's so powerful. You know, it has the power to change people's minds, and you know, whether the message is good or not, it will change people's minds. So therein lies the responsibility, you know. If I put music out into the world that talks about, you know, infidelity and you know, spreading hatred, that will change people's minds too. Mm-hmm. But that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do the opposite.
Because I was talking to a friend of mine who is a soul singer as well. We were actually talking about this, and he said, you know, in the 60s and in the 70s, music, as in Curtis Mayfield, Marvin Gaye, it really had a message. And he said it really links to a certain, you know, an era, period in history. And then he said to me, for me that was really an eye-opener, he said, and what's the song of our era? It's Happy. Happy by Pharrell is like the most famous song of the last years. Right. Or Get Lucky by Daft Punk. I mean, it does say something about us,
right?
Doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it does. It says a lot about us and where our sort of, I guess, the sort of zeitgeist of the times, right?
So what do you think that is? It's some sort of superficiality, or?
Yeah, I think that it is. I think that people don't want to have to pay attention to things that that challenge their comfortability and their way of living. You know, they don't want to have to be told that they need to get up off the couch and do something, you know, that could change change the world, or you know, it's a difficult subject, but
it is a subject that you are, you know, it's the key to your music.
Yeah.
The message.
Right. Yeah. To me, that's kind of the most important component of my music.
When I listen to your music, I hear a lot of messages. What would you say is your key message to the people?
I think that most of my messages are sort of lead back to a central theme, which is, sort of unity. That it's kind of about realizing that we're all connected and we're all in this together. You know, we need to stop disconnecting from each other, and we do that in our everyday lives with our televisions and our telephones and our whatever it is that we do that disconnects us from other people. I think is sort of doing a disservice to the greater good.
And the greater good is unity.
The greater good is unity.
And when you say we, because there's a lot of we in your songs, there's a lot of us, the people, then you mean, is there a particular group you mean, or you mean?
I'm talking about everybody.
Everybody.
Talking about we, the human race.
We're not paying attention to the houses. You like them?
I know, it's so beautiful.
Okay.
Oh, I love it here.
I have a few records with me. What does this artist mean to you?
Oh, boy. The giant. That's sort of the first word that comes to mind. Musically, no one had ever done things that he did. He brought an approach that was unique and unheard of.
Okay.
And I think still to this day, and probably for all time, he will be considered one of the greats, for sure.
Okay, next pick. Oh, it's a young kid playing Chopin.
Oh, playing Chopin. Very nice. Well, I am a die-hard Chopin fanatic. From the time I was a child, for some reason, Chopin just spoke to me.
Yeah?
And although I never learned to read music, I would sit at the piano and I would just listen to, a waltz in D-flat minor, and I would sit there and try to figure it out at the piano. And so I love Chopin. I think he's the greatest of all time in terms of solo piano classical music. I don't think it was ever done better than him.
But when you say he spoke to me, what do you mean? Like, what did he say?
I mean, his music got inside of me. It really stirred up my soul, and it sort of had a gravitational pull that I couldn't escape, A
gravitational pull? What does that mean?
It's like a magnet.
Okay, yeah. Next one.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Now we hear the ho ho ho.
The Holy Grail.
Now he wants to touch the record. What makes it the Holy Grail?
Stevie Wonder is my favorite musician of all time, and I think better than anyone combined the most beautiful music you've ever heard with the most beautiful voice and lyrics that you've ever heard.
And a guy with a message as well.
And a guy with a message, absolutely. Yeah, he's sort of the prototype that I feel like I come in the spirit of Stevie Wonder,
There's one song on this album I just saw. Jesus, Children of America.
Mm-hmm.
You grew up in a Christian home. Is religion still important to you?
It is, yeah. Sort of grew up in an unorthodox household.
Yeah.
In terms of Christianity, but I think as I'm growing into my own, my manhood and my concept of God and my spirituality and my understanding of religion is all constantly evolving and changing, but I always have a relationship with God, and that's kind of the most important part of it all. Mm-hmm. I think religion is sort of an other thing.
Okay, so you don't go to a specific church?
I don't, no. And I didn't necessarily grow up going to a specific church. We kind of bounced around from different churches, and my father was always looking for the right church and kind of had a difficult time with that, you know, ever feeling very comfortable with any one church. So maybe that's sort of why I am the way that I am. I'm constantly, you know, seeking truth and updating. I keep myself sort of open and moldable and open to, you know, new ideas and if
like a jazz musician.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if something comes along that challenges my idea of truth or my idea of what God is, or, you know, I'm open to taking new ideas in and sort of contemplating them. And
But if you say that you're seeking the truth, do you like actively go to different kind of churches, or do you read books, or is it just more like a thinking process?
I mean, it's a little bit of both. I mean, I will occasionally, I have friends that will occasionally be like, you know, I would love for you to come to my church with me, and I will occasionally do that, and most of the time it's not an experience that is quite right for me necessarily, but I do it for them a lot of the time, so that I can at least say that I tried, and I in general don't feel comfortable in churches, I'll be honest with you. But yeah, again, the sort of primary focus for me is to retain a relationship with God, whatever my concept of God is. And
Is he important for you when you make your music? You know, I have friends who really are certain that there must be a higher something in order to make music.
right.
You believe that too?
I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily true. I mean, all things in the universe are making music constantly.
Like birds, trees.
The river that we're flowing on right now. All sounds, it's all sort of music in a way. And you know, maybe God is behind that, and maybe I don't know. You know, we don't know, do we?
We don't. We'll find out when we die. Another giant.
Yes,
I'd
sir.
say.
Yes, ma'am. Donny Hathaway. Another one of my favorites of all time, of course. And this album is so good. This is one of my favorite live albums of all time. You know, some artists are only good at performing live, and some artists are only good at performing in the studio. Donny could do both. And this live album is really a testament to that.
Do you remember the first time you heard him?
My father had Donny Hathaway records in his collection, and I think when I was, you know, between 8 and 10 years old, somewhere in there, I think I heard Donny Hathaway for the first time. And, you know, his voice really speaks for itself. You hear it and it's just, really gets inside of you, you know? He sings with so much conviction, and you really feel it come within. I think Donny brought a certain human quality because he, you know, as in his later life, you know, he fought with a lot of demons and of course was sort of, they discovered that he was displaying schizophrenic behavior, of course, and I think that he really, you know, he was dealing with some hard things in his life, and so it adds a certain level of authenticity to his messages and his music, all of it.
Last question, Jarrod.
Mm-hmm.
It took you more than 10 years to write the first album. Is it going to take you more than 10 to write a second?
I don't think so.
No?
I've actually already got a whole other album's worth of material written and ready to go.
Ah.
So I just need time to get home. We'll finish up these tours and I'll get home and I can get my band back in the studio. And I think within the next year or maybe year and a half, I can get the next one done.
Thank you very much, Jarrod.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed your first canal ride.
I had a wonderful time.
Good.
Thank you so much. Can I help you? You're sporty.
I'm yeah.
You're athletic like me, huh?
Dit is Radio 6.